Well, what an exciting gathering to be standing in front of. And it's getting late, but I think I'm going to start off by introducing the voice of one of the beings that I've spent so much of my life getting to know, and that's the chimpanzee. So, this is me, this is Jane, in chimpanzee language. There's a reason for my starting that way, which I'll come back to later. But I want to go back to the very beginning. And I want to acknowledge the tremendously important role that my mother played on my life. She was the most amazingly understanding and supportive person. She supported my passionate love of all animals, which began as soon as I could open my eyes, apparently. But she did more than that. When I was 10 years old, going back 70 years in the UK, a little girl dreaming of going to Africa, living with animals, and writing books was unheard of. And everybody laughed at me, but she didn't. And her message was, if you really want this, you're going to have to work very hard, take advantage of opportunity, and never give up. She did something else for me. We grew up in a Christian family. My grandfather was a congregational minister. But I remember her very well saying, you know, you might have been born in Egypt, or you might have been born in Japan, or perhaps some other part of the world. And maybe instead of calling God, God, you would call God Allah. And she gave a list of other names, but she said, it has to be one God. So whatever faith we grow up in, it's all the same God, and we're all united in worshiping that God. The next thing she did for me in my journey was after World War II, and that was a shock. I remember so well the devastation, the pictures of the Holocaust when those camps were opened up, made a deep impression on me. And I remember so clearly too the shocking, shocking pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And during the war, you know, the Germans in the UK, the sound of a German voice sent a chill to us. And so what did my mother do after the war? She found a family in Germany and sent me off to stay with them so that I would learn it wasn't Germans who fought the war. It was just that we fought the war for whatever reasons we fought it, and the Germans were people just like us. Then I had this amazing opportunity of going and living with and learning about not just any animal, but the one most like us biologically and behaviorally. So many of our behavior patterns are the same. So much of our biology is the same. And it was a shock to me to find that, like us, chimpanzees have a dark side to their nature, and they're capable of violence and even a kind of primitive war. But at the same time, like us, they have qualities of love, compassion, and true altruism. It was very clear after I'd been among them for a couple of years that there wasn't a sharp line dividing us from them. And yet when I went to Cambridge University to do a PhD, I'd had no degree at all at the time. I hadn't been to college. And the professors told me I'd done everything wrong. The chimpanzees shouldn't have names but numbers. That was scientific. And I couldn't talk about them having personalities, minds capable of problem solving, and certainly not emotions, because those were unique to us. And fortunately, although I was very naive scientifically, I had a wonderful teacher when I was a child. That was my dog, Rusty. He absolutely taught me the professors were wrong, and I don't care what animal you share your life with. You share your life with a dog, a cat, a pig, a cow, I don't care what it is, you know the professors were wrong. And I think it was the chimpanzees that have helped to open the dark box in which science was operating. And now there's a whole flurry of interest in the intellect of birds, which originally scientists said their brains structured differently, they're not capable of intellectual performance as well. They are. And the latest interest is in the intelligence of the octopus. And if you haven't seen this, after this, Google octopus with coconut shell. You will be amazed and you will laugh, so please do it. So we are part of the animal kingdom, not separated from it, as once was thought. It's a difference of degree and not, as I was told, a difference of kind. And yet, there's a difference. We all know there's a difference. We wouldn't be sitting here in a room like this if there wasn't a difference. We wouldn't have a gathering like this if there wasn't a difference. And I think the difference began when humans, for some reason or other, started to develop a spoken language. It could be a sign language, but a language using symbolism, using words, so that I could describe for you things far away, and if I use words correctly, you would get a picture. And now we use the words in writing, we use them now electronically. And I believe that this ability to talk about the past, to plan the distant future, and above all to have discussions so that we can bring together people from different disciplines to try and solve a problem, that has led to this explosive development of our intellect. So here's the multi-million-dollar question. If, and I think we must agree, we're the most intellectual creature that's ever walked the surface of the planet, how come we're destroying our only home? It's not just the war and the violence and the weapons of mass destruction that we've been talking so much about. Those, yes. But in addition, there's the war that we're wreaking on Mother Earth. And this is really very serious. If you care, as I do, about the wild places, the fact that the forests are going and the freshwater supplies are shrinking, and there's the terrible pollution of air, water, and land. There are the chemicals that we use in industry, in agriculture, and also in our own homes. And with these, we are poisoning the planet. There's now facing us the disaster of climate change. No longer is this a myth that some people can deny. Very few people deny it today because we see what's happening. We see temperatures rising. We see the ice melting. We see tremendous impact on biodiversity around the planet. So how is this possible? People have been talking about this up on this platform tonight. There seems to be a disconnect between this clever brain and the human heart, love and compassion. And the brain without the heart can be very, very dangerous. The brain without the heart can release nuclear weapons that will destroy a whole area of a country and release poisons into the atmosphere that will damage people for years and years to come. No wonder, as I was traveling the world, and I do travel 300 days a year, no wonder I was meeting many young people, thoughtful young people, who were thinking about the problems in the world around them, environmental and social. And they seemed not to have much hope for the future, many of them. And I'm talking about young people in America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. And when I began talking to them, they all said more or less the same thing. And these young people, mostly they were just apathetic, didn't really care much about anything. But some of them were deeply depressed, even clinically depressed, and some were angry, even violent. And they said to me, we feel this way because you've compromised our future, and there's nothing we can do about it. Every day I see a small child, and I look at that child, and I think how we've harmed this planet since I was that age. I feel ashamed of my species. And that's why I began this movement for young people. Roots and Shoots that's now in 140 countries around the world. And it's basically acknowledging and helping young people understand that each and every one of us makes a difference each and every day, that each one of us has a role to play, that each one of us has a life that matters. And I will never forget talking to a group of untouchable children in Nepal, forced to work in the brick mines and the coal mines, or to make bricks and go in the coal mines, and telling them about this fact that they matter, their lives matter. And some of the older ones were crying. They said, nobody's ever told us we mattered before. So Roots and Shoots is about empowering young people, first of all, to learn about the problems around them, and secondly, to discuss those problems and find out if they feel there's something they can do about those problems, and finally, to empower them to take action and listen to their voices. The young people are those who are inheriting the mess that we've made. And when I think back to my childhood and my wise mother and the lessons I learned during World War II, we need to start with young children. Roots and Shoots encourages every single group, and there are about 100 or 150,000 groups around the world, and a group can be the whole school or just a small family group. And there are children involved in preschool and a very strong number in university, and even some adults are forming groups of Roots and Shoots today. And not only do we have the number of active groups now, but we have all the young people who've been going through that program since it began in 1991, who tell me it changed the way they think. We don't tell them what to do. How could we? Because the problems are different for young people growing up in different countries and different situations. They choose what they want to do. We encourage them, we help them, we provide some ideas if they don't have any, and some children have been so suppressed that they can't really think for themselves. But what we're creating is a family of young people who understand that, yes, we need money to live, but what's gone wrong, particularly in the Western world and some of the communities throughout the world, is that money has become a religion. And people are not just needing money to live, they're living for money. And it's okay to live for money if that money is going to be used to put the world to rights. It's not okay to live for money to get another villa, to get another big car, to get, yes. So these Roots and Shoots young people are what give me the most hope. We have one amazing young leader in Burundi. Burundi, which was really getting over their terrible genocide, which is sadly seeming to start up again. He was forced to be a child soldier. And he got through his pain and his trauma by working with Roots and Shoots to help the young people in his country. And he's carried on, even with the killings that are going on in Burundi today, almost every week. He carries on, he works with the teachers, he gives the young people hope. So this is what gives me the most hope, the young people. So everywhere I go in the world, these crazy 300 days of travel, there are young people with shining eyes wanting to tell Dr. Jane what they've been doing, what they plan to do to make this a better world, how they've been helping people, how they've been helping other animals, how they've been helping the environment. Why did the UN make me a messenger of peace? What was that for? That was because one of the threads, the philosophies running right throughout Roots and Shoots, which I didn't even think about, but it grew out of the program. It grew out of the empowerment of youth and listening to their voices. And that was a thread of, we need to learn to live in peace and harmony with each other. Peace and harmony between nations, between cultures, between religions. In Tanzania, we worked in the Muslim schools as well as the Christian schools. They worked together on projects. They understood how closely they are the same. And so the Roots and Shoots group give me hope. The human brain gives me hope. After all, yes, not only have we created these weapons of mass destruction and chemical warfare, we've also created so much amazing, clean, green energy. If we just had governments subsidize that rather than the oil and gas industry. My next reason for hope is the resilience of nature. You must all know places that once were beautiful that we have desecrated, and how give them time and perhaps some help. Once again, they can become beautiful. I've seen areas that were totally devastated come back. All around Gombe National Park, where the chimps are, when I flew over in 1991, the hills that had been thick forest were bare, because more people were living there than the land could support, too poor to buy food from elsewhere. And it was then obvious to me, we can't save nature, we can't save animals, unless we also improve the lives of people living in poverty. And it's worked. They become our partners. The trees have come back. And my next reason for hope is the indomitable human spirit, the people who tackle the impossible and won't give up. And Nelson Mandela is the example that comes to mind, because he came out of 17 years of hard physical labor with the amazing capacity of forgiveness, and so was able to lead his nation out of the evil regime of apartheid. Without a bloodbath. And finally, and this is something which came to me only recently, this time last year, I took part in the climate march in New York, and the organizers thought that perhaps there'd be 80,000 people. In fact, there were nearly 400,000. It would have been more, but the police had to stop more people coming because it was dangerous. And why did that happen? I watched, I saw what happened. Everybody all around me, they had their cell phones and their iPads and their tablets, and they were messaging and tweeting and twittering and calling people on their cell phone. And they were saying, come and join us. It's a beautiful day. There's a whole lot of film stars over there. And I even heard one young girl say, Jane Goodall's here. Yes. So that was going on in major cities around the world, the same sort of thing. It was the largest gathering of human beings gathered around an issue in the history of mankind. And that's what we can do if we join hands and join hearts, work with hand and heart together. That's why the faith communities are so important. I hope some of you will help me to get Roots and Shoots into your communities, because as one young man said to me, who helped me start it in the 90s, he said, Jane, one of the best things about Roots and Shoots is I know anywhere I go in the world, even if I don't know anybody, if there's a group of Roots and Shoots, I've found my family. We are growing a family of young people who understand that underneath the color of our skin, the languages we speak, we're all the same. We have the same heart that beats. And I believe that it's the young people who are going to help to make that link between head and heart that will lead to a world of peace and harmony. Thank you.